Today's adventure brings me to St. Cloud, Florida. Peeking above that rusted out van there, retro looking van, is the St. Cloud, Florida water tower, my former home for many years. My family moved here back in '91, so I'm going to do a little hometown tour. Some memories, reminisce a little bit. As the recording of this Thursday, February 24th, 2022. And as I'm making my way over to downtown to park and then take my scooter around, passing by where I used to live with my family. In fact, my first car I ever had, which was a '84 Ford LTD, I used to park right over here, off to the side. And my dad was the minister at this church. It's now a different congregation, but it used to be First Christian Church, about a block away from downtown. That was a little bit of a speed bump. Welcome everyone, TheDailyWoo here. Before getting on the scooter, however, I'm gonna finish off this piping hot caffeinated beverage I got at the store on the way in. It's very difficult to have the camera in one hand, be on the scooter, and the other hand is occupied by coffee. This is about 25 miles from my current homestead, Celebration, Florida, and the reason I am down here today is a little bit later and be visiting with my parents. I have not seen them since I got back off my 7-week road trip a few days ago. So I'll be doing that a little bit later, and I figured, why in the area? Might as well show some of the things I know a lot about. I do a lot of small town stuff. Show small town St. Cloud. I've showed it before years ago. Showing it again, some new memories, some things that kind of maybe jarred some thoughts in my mind. Join me. Shall you? At one point, there was a siren going by off in the distance. At one point, this used to be called the Popcorn Palace. A 2-screen cinema here. Very little quaint community that has a movie theater. I always like to show these movie theaters. Some apartments, or used to be, up top. And one of the original hardware stores is down there on the end. This place over here called Phire, P-H-Y-R-E. I remember a few Christmases ago they had a Krampus photo op, and the town completely lost its mind over it. The town didn't want Krampus. I lived in a lot of places around Central Florida since originally in the early '90s when my family moved here. Once I got of age and was able to get my own apartment, so I started basically living in as many places as you could think, too many to count. One of them was not this place over here, but I did consider, I even looked at one of these apartments, which kind of looks like, now that I'm looking at it now, present day, it just basically looks like a beachside hotel, even though it's about an hour from the beach. This is the original fire department right here. And there are offices behind here. I made the mistake a few years ago when I passed by here of kind of knocking on the wood to see what it was made of. And someone that was inside came out and said, "What are you doing knocking on that?" So just keep that in mind if you ever, don't knock on that. The lakefront is about 7 or 8 blocks that way. And there are a lot of murals here around town, like the Joyland Beach Pavilion back in 1929. You would be able to find this at the St. Cloud lakefront. No longer there, probably a storm tore it down or developers. This has been gone for a long time. I don't even remember it back in when I first moved here. It was torn down way before then. Ah, here's a little information placard. It was destroyed by fire in 1923. Then a new one was built, but then in '35, flames once again consumed the bathing pavilion and all of its contents. And every time I've always seen this little kind of overlook here, I always think of how if an 18-wheeler went off of Highway 192 and through this back street, it would tear this down in one monumental second, but it has stood the test of times. One of the original stores right over there, right here in town. Now the town has grown considerably since the first residents moved here years ago. It used to just be 3 streets, starting on the one I'm at, and then over to New York, which is the next street over, and then the one past there was just basically 3 blocks, but it's expanded a lot since then. A portrait, a painting, I should say, of the railroad, St. Cloud Railroad Depot. The railroad tracks have been long removed. However, where they were, if you're familiar with the area, is down 10th Street. Basically, the town is on a grid of roads. It kind of looks very block-ish. except for 10th Street that runs at a kind of an unusual slanted motion. If you look at, like a satellite view of the roads running through the main St. Cloud area. But right over here was the railroad depot. So I am walking where the tracks would have been at one time. And the tracks would have gone that way, more or less. Kind of at that angle, and connects over with 13th Street, which is Highway 192. I know it's very confusing if you're not from the area, but might find it interesting if you look on a satellite view map, or if you were a local resident that was new to the area. Look at this little bench down here. The Sugar Belt Railway, built in 1889, used to make a return trip. It would go to the turntable in Narcoossee, which is about 10 miles away. I have looked for the turntable. I've heard it's in someone's backyard. Years and years ago, I researched it. I've never seen the turntable with my own eyes. Not 100% sure if it still exists. If it does, it's on private property. As well as the city hall that is here. New York Street, or New York Ave, used to run directly through this all the way up to the lakefront. And then, 20 years ago or so, they built City Hall. So now you have to go over to the next road to go around it. Now here's a fun story. There is this payphone relic right here. This payphone, this is a different payphone, but there was a payphone here back in the 90s, mid-90s, that I would use. This is before cell phones. And I would stand in this very spot and use the payphone. Granted, this skeleton shell is a new one, new brand, but it was right here. And of course, the current payphone has been removed as well. Quite a few movies were filmed down here. TV shows. The Superboy TV series utilized this little area through here. There's one particular episode that they did down here, and a few other things I'll talk about as I'm wandering. This substation is always fascinating to me, this little architecture right down here. It's like this brickwork, or the rock work that's here. Pretty neat with a little, you can kind of peek through those holes there. They've been doing quite a bit of construction on the St. Cloud Hotel, which some say, if you're into that sort of thing, is haunted. And then across the way is the original library, later a thrift store. But when I first came here in '91, it was the library. Hasn't been the library for decades though. Before that, I think it was a bank. You always know how small towns get a lot of rumors started. The rumor mill gets going and people believe it after something has been repeated many times. This People's Bank was not robbed by John Dillinger. Some say it was. John Dillinger never was here. Was never in that bank. But you talk to some locals and they will swear by that fact. This would be neat when this is finally finished. This is one of the original buildings where the original residents, the very select few original residents that were here, lived back when they were waiting for their houses to be purchased and built. Someone is yelling at me as they drive by. The library, former bank, is now a Metro wireless expert. Do not jump this fence or there could be repercussions here. But I do want to peek my camera over it because I really like this quote that has been up on the side of this wall for as long as I can remember. Right there. Let me live in my house, built by the side of the road, and be a friend to man. Very nice. Well, this is what it originally looked like. That's what it looked like back in the day, and these are some of the original residents here in STC, St. Cloud for short. In fact, I have a tattoo right here, STC for St. Cloud. Yep, got some memories here. This place will always kind of have be a part of me. The historic Hunter Arms Hotel, see the hotel sign up top there, used in the classic Herschel Gordon Lewis horror film 2000 Maniacs, prominently in that film, which, that movie went on to inspire a lot of other horror directors. The godfather of gore, they called Herschel Gordon. Inside the Hunter Arms, also there was a scene in The Waterboy and Superboy inside here as well, and in front of here. The Waterboy scene is the party scene when the Colonel Sanders looking teacher comes back down the staircase with the black eyes. And Henry Winkler's talking to the other players about, you know, the game they had just played. They had won, they were having the party, and then he saw the two girls. He says, I see a lot of girls. I see a lot of guys too. And approaching the former Big D's bar where my band played quite a few shows right in here. It's now an antique store. And next to Big D's, the former Big D's, so imagine like a circle pit slam dancing right inside of here. My punk band played in there. We always had a decent following locally, but once we toured, no one knew who we were, but that's usually how it goes. We were kind of like local heroes here in the area. I say heroes, we draw like maybe 100 people, give or take. This used to be a tattoo place called, well, I don't even know what it was called. It was a tattoo place that was here that we played inside of. And no one has ever lived up there as far as I know, but we actually played inside here as well. I think there might even still be a hole in the wall where someone's knee went through it. Used to be a little deli there, now a massage shop where I would get a sandwich every once in a while. And this is where I spent many years. In fact, I've stated a lot of this before, but it's been a while since I kind of looked back on St. Cloud, so some might not know this. This is where I made the decision to quit the last job I ever had where I punched a clock and move into my van. And I tested it out. I lived in the last 3 windows up here were my apartment. There's 2 apartments across the top. I would enter into this door, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna give up my apartment, take that money that I'm spending on rent, and I'm just gonna travel with it and start this YouTube thing. It worked out pretty well. In hindsight, it worked out pretty dang well. I'm doing all right. My van used to be parked right over here unless there was street cleaning, and then I would park it over there in that community lot in the distance. But my window, my bedroom was that far corner there. And many times I sat right here on this very stoop and just enjoyed the evening. I would get off work, worked at a feed store about a mile away. I would just sit right here. I had a key to this door, go up the staircase, fisherman in the fridge. It's a deep cut, if anyone knows it. Filmed all those right in here. Yep. Some good memories through here. In fact, there used to be a ladder that was going up to the roof up here. The ladder has been removed, but I was always worried someone was going to climb the ladder, get on that roof, and then break into my apartment. So I put a no trespassing sign there, and I put a no trespassing sign here. Those have been removed, and finally, the ladder has been removed. So the new residents probably talked the landlord into finally getting rid of that ladder. And around the front view, those 3 windows and the 2 on the side, that was where my television was and my couch and all that. It was a little 1-bedroom. There was a really nice lady that owned a coffee shop here. It's no longer a coffee shop, but I would go over here occasionally. And also, she was kind enough to leave the Wi-Fi on all night, so I never had Wi-Fi. I would just use the coffee shop's Wi-Fi because I was directly across from it. That was a long time ago. It's been 11 years at least since I moved out of here, since I moved out of the spot. And back when I lived down here, the brickwork was not exposed like this. This is some of the original brickwork. It was repaved over, and a lot of the town folks said, we want the original brickwork back. So this has only been done within the last 10 years, where they've removed the overlay of the concrete. Now the brick is back. All right, finished my coffee, got the scooter out. Haven't used this in a while since my road trip. Still got a little dirt on there. Probably should have wiped the dirt off before I put it in the back of my car. Put the kickstand up, and you do a little scooter tour around STC. I also recall probably about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a little bit of hoopla. They were gonna build a skyscraper right here. It was all in the newspapers. I thought, there's no way that's gonna happen. And I said, it's not gonna happen. I put it out there that I did not think St. Cloud, Florida would have a skyscraper this soon. And it's, you know, with just based on the population and how many people are down here. And I was correct. The skyscraper, 5 years or so later after they announced it, still not there. Didn't happen. Ah yes, Morse Market. Or as the locals and I called it, Moores Market. But it's really spelled Morse Market. This place is a rite of passage for anyone that lives in this town or lives in this town. You know this place really well. On the weekends, this place is a beehive of activity. Everyone going in and getting their beverages. In fact, there's still a sticker down here for DNA energy drink, which I don't even know if they make that anymore. We placed that here because one of the guys in my band worked for that energy drink company. So we would always, you know, put stickers, and they probably even sold it in here at one point. Right here on this, I don't even think there's Orlando Sentinels in this thing anymore. Interesting. An old newspaper box. Morse Market is open though. It is open for business. Now here's something I did not know until now. Now I've always known about handyman hardware, but there's a new mural right here by this door that shows a little bit of the history. Also, there's my shadow right there. The only reason I'm showing that is because I don't want to show everyone driving by in their cars, not every single person. This used to be Cobble's garage. Now, I never knew that. I know a lot about the area from residing here for so long, but I did not realize this was Cobble's garage before it was Handyman Hardware. A hardware store that has been around for as long as I can recall. The building was built back in 1914. 50 by 100-foot structure was the longest single floor space in the city at that time. The gas pump was on the edge of the road, leaving your car on the road as you filled the tank. What the heck? That is pretty dang awesome. I did not realize. So there's the gas pump there on at the other end. Established 1914. Pretty cool. Corner of Massachusetts and 10th. This always makes me laugh too. The street sign over there is proportionate for gravity's sake on either side. But the one here on this corner, big difference. Very lengthy to one side. Look how long this side is on this one side. I don't know why that's so funny. And approaching this building, which was also one of the original ones here in town, used for a number of different things. The upstairs was something different than the bottom stairs, which was another general store. I have a book that kind of gives the history of the town. That's just kind of how I know some of it. You will rarely see the GAR Memorial Hall open. It's never open. I don't even know if I've ever seen it used, but it is on the National Register of Historic Places. Looks like a new sign, so that might be, ooh. I didn't realize that was gonna like dip off the sidewalk there. It kind of surprised me. But right there, it is now on the National Registry of Historic Places. And even more brick over here. See, this is all brick. Within the last 10 years or so, the brick has made an appearance again, the original brick, which is good. And I'm back over to where I began the video, getting a better look at this kind of rusted out relic here, an Econoline. It's a nice van. Kind of reminds me of the van from Texas Chainsaw, the 74. Look at this though, this is awesome. Quite a few classic cars right over here. There's a Chevy truck, another Chevy El Camino right there, and almost a hot rod style over on the end. Not only, well, there's a blue hot rod over there, but then also look at this rusted out relic right here. This is awesome. Look at this. This is cool. Radis Horribilis. There's Beelzebub there. Wow, this is nice. And then around the back, look at these. It almost looks like kind of like a turbo looking style. There's another devil there. Evil clown. This thing's awesome. All rusted out, very vintage. Oh, look at this. Right here on the wheel well. And then where the front license plate goes is a bat and a clown. That is very low to the ground. Very low, like maybe only an inch or two. Probably an inch, I would say, from the ground. lowrider if ever there was one. And right here off the main thoroughfare, Highway 192, also known as Earl O'Bronson and 13th Street, is another sign that is proportionately awkward. While discussing things that get talked about by locals and you never know if they're true or not true, this building was built, from what I heard from a lot of friends and other locals, by a lottery winner who was a cook and won the lottery, so opened a place called Juicy Lucy's. It's now a family dentistry. And it was only open for a short time, 6 months, maybe a year at most. And that was in the mid to late 90s. And the reason I really even bring that up or recall that is because during that time frame in the mid 90s, I had some friends that were in a couple punk bands, and one of the rare times that the St. Cloud band shell, which is now taped off for whatever reason, it's wet paint, was utilized very rarely. Maybe 2 or 3 times in my memory and recollection have I ever seen anything happening here at the band shell. But back in the mid 90s, there was a punk show here. In fact, I was right in here throwing my very skinny weight around. Back then I was skin and bones. Now I'm definitely the opposite of that. Slam dancing right in this area, and all of us kept going over to Juicy Lucy's to get free waters, and they ran out of cups. They were not happy that their cups were gone. You know, no one had any money, but free water is always good, so here is a better late than never thank you to Juicy Lucy's for keeping us hydrated. Right, we kept walking over there in between bands. See if I can find a photo from that day. And thankfully I still have it on my phone right here. Now notice the erected plaque down there. And this scrawny, skinny, jean-wearing fellow is me in the mid-90s, throwing my skinny weight around. And side note over here, this is King Woovian. If you know, you know, right over here in the corner, rocking out on the guitar. Good friend of mine since those days. Well, I refer to him by his real name, but a lot of people call him King Woovian. Good buddy of mine. Stood right here on this stage. And that was before I even picked up the bass guitar and attempted to play it. I use that term loosely because I was never very good even when I was in a band. I could hold my own, but definitely not a musician by most people's standards. But that was before that was even a twinkle in my eye of purchasing a musical instrument and doing the whole band thing. Sometimes I do miss touring, being in a band. I don't know if it's something I would do full-time down the road, but I think about it. Strapping back on the guitar, starting another band, bringing another band back, joining former bands, who knows? But I'm just thinking out loud, but it does get in my head sometimes. I do miss playing little dive bars and just touring. You never know what the future holds, but stuff like this always kind of miss the scene, miss the punk scene a little bit. Built in 1952, was probably the wildest event that ever took place here. In fact, we were stage diving off of this. And there was probably only maybe 200 people total scattered throughout the entire premises. So we had to basically jump up on stage and say, come to the front, get to the front. And a bunch of us would go to the front, and then we would leap off. If I stage dove now, I would snap someone's neck with my body weight. I'm not gonna do that. I'm kind of curious, that image, I don't know why, it just sounds funny. Is this paint wet, or has this sign been here a while? I'm not gonna test out that theory. You don't want me stage diving in this day and age. I'm way heavier than I used to be. I used to be thin. I just got to reminiscing and thinking and recalling, somewhere out there is a video of this day. I don't know where it is. It doesn't belong to me. Somewhere there is a video. Ah yes, Sip and Dip. Another St. Cloud staple. Used to be like a 7-Eleven at one time, but I've always known it as Sip and Dip. It's kind of interesting, but I worked at 2 places within this series of blocks. One in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, I worked at a cabinet shop which has since closed. But right inside there, I would take pieces of wood and cut them and put them together into drawers and whatnot. It's now a boat shop. I got laid off because I was not very good at doing anything that when it goes to making cabinets. And then years later, the last job I ever worked, where I punched a clock, I should say, is right down here. And it was a farm and ranch supply store. It's not the same owners anymore. In fact, totally different name, even though it is currently a feed store. The one I worked out closed, and then another one took over. So just the building remains. Used to store the round bales right over there where that truck is parked. And those bay doors would be open, and you load people's hay in the back. This is not the backside of water. This is the backside of the feed store I worked at. Spent over 5 years full time here at this place. Now back over close to where my apartment was, just a couple blocks away. Bonnie Lee's Chicken, some delicious chicken, if you're ever in the mood for that, and in this area. With this laundromat here, because I did not have a washer and dryer at my place, I would go in there about once a week and do my laundry. Stand out front just like that person standing out front, just waiting for the laundry to be done. Also next to it was a pizza place called Touch of Basil, still there, where you could get an inexpensive slice. But 9 times out of 10, what I would usually do for food would be frequent the Save-A-Lot. Right here. I was on a very strict budget. I would go in and buy $1 pizzas, pot pies, loaves of bread, right inside that place, and then I would walk over. So basically I would drive home from work at the feed store, take a shower, and then I'd walk back over to Save-A-Lot, get a couple days worth of food, go back and watch a DVD, watch a movie, go to sleep, get back up the next day, go back to work. And I've pretty much been on that same routine since I quit working for someone. I'm gonna try to go down this dip. There, we did it. More or less, I wake up about the same time. About 6:30, 7 a.m. every day. There are exceptions, but anyone that knows me personally knows I am a pretty strict schedule as far as when I go to bed at night, usually around midnight, and then wake up around 6:30 in the morning and try to do most of what I'm doing, for this, if you want to call it a job, this work that I am doing, making videos. I try to make it as close to, even though it's very enjoyable, I try to make it job-like, even though I'm working for myself. And I've kept that schedule since in August 9th, 2011 is the last time I worked at that feed store. And I've kind of kept the same kind of hours. Not banker's hours, I was never a banker, but you get the idea. I just kind of treat what I do like a job. But I'm way more motivated to work for myself. Way more motivated. Not making someone else money. There you go, a little mural there. St. Cloud, Florida mural. Right on the side of this building. That's relatively new as well. I don't know what that racket is. Time for a little more information. I get asked this pretty often. I would say one of the top 2 or 3 questions I've always asked is, what does Adam the Woo mean? What in the heck is a woo? Is there a meaning behind the woo? The answer, I have discussed this before, but it has been many years ago I went into detail of this, so I think it is time to reiterate it. This is a Walmart. This is a Walmart Supercenter over here, which back in my retail working days in the mid-90s, I was part of a skeleton crew, if you will, about 20 people who were hired to open this. Now, that 20 people went to about 40 people, 50 people, 60 people, maybe even more than that as a week or two went by. But initially, I was one of the first ones to walk into what is now the St. Cloud Walmart Supercenter. The original Walmart, which was not a supercenter, was across the street over there where a thrift store is and a Tractor Supply. And back in those days, mid-90s, my girlfriend I had at the time, we lived at Simpson Ridge Apartments up in Kissimmee, right on Simpson Road. And just out of boredom, at work one day, in the, not craft section, but in the office section, there was a stamp pad set for return mail. If you're familiar with snail mail, you would put a return address on there. By the way, this is the Lynx bus stop. And I'm pointing that out because there are two, right over there, there are two bus stops. The one on the far end is where I was sitting when I came up with the name, The Woo. The way a stamp pad set worked was basically you would take these little tweezers and you would pull out rubber letters and place them in what would be the return address stamp. You could create whatever you wanted. It could be Adam the tree, Adam the leave. In fact, I came up with a lot of names similar to that, probably about 20 different names as I waited for the bus, the Lynx bus, to pull up right here. And I just was bored, waiting for the bus to get home, down 192 to Simpson Road, the Lynx bus that dropped off right there. And I came up with Adam the Woo. I thought that's pretty funny because I would write bands. You know, I would get on their mailing list. You would go to, especially before email, you go to concerts, you know, local shows, and bands would have, by the way, speaking of, I was on a Blink 182 mailing list, and I used to have, I wish I still had it, a postcard from Blink saying that they were being sued by another group, overseas group, different type of music, and they had to add in a name. They couldn't be called Blink anymore. I used to have that. I wish I still had it. It was like a handwritten, hand-printed thing that is no longer, I don't know where that is anymore. But I digress. So you go to these mailing lists, and I never wanted to like just put, you know, I never wanted to handwrite it on there. So I thought, let me have a nickname. No one ever gave me a nickname growing up. So I created my own nickname that means absolutely nothing. The Woo means nothing. There is no meaning. There is a Lynx bus right there. It's one of these very ones that I was waiting for. It pulls into here and then goes over to where I just was, right back there. So the Woo means nothing. I created it in the mid-90s. The girlfriend I had at the time, we lived together. She goes, what is a stamp pad set and what is the Woo? I said, I don't know what it is, but one day that name will, I don't know if it'll have a meaning, but one day that name will be synonymous with me for whatever reason. And I thought it was going to be through eBay because I used to sell on eBay and my username on eBay was Adam the Woo. Then when YouTube started, I just used that username, uploaded videos of my past bands, family, home videos, me, my mom and dad, sister, things like that, all of which has been erased from existence. I have gotten those off of the channel because when the channel started to gain momentum, I didn't want all my personal stuff that I thought no one was going to see. I just originally used the channel to email family and say, oh look, here's the family reunion from years back. Do you want to see this footage? But as the channel kind of grew and I started to realize that you could put content out there, I already had the name, Adam the Woo, that originated right over here on a stamp pad set. They probably don't even make those stamp pad sets anymore. If they did, I should buy another one, come up with another name. Oh, that is quite the noise. So these very benches, which have new advertisements on them, obviously, is where I created the name. A pretty uneventful and anticlimactic meaning. I'm sure you thought there was something way more intense and there was a purpose. But with most of the things I do, there is no purpose at all. Right here. As my shadow goes by, it was on one of these very benches. Could have been that one, could have been that one. Right here in front of the St. Cloud Walmart that I worked at. One of the many retail jobs that I had over the course of my life. That's the answer. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna go spend some time with my parents and have some family time. I'll see you in the next video. The vlog is. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I really do. The vlog is over. What the heck is a woo? I honestly don't even know. Also, Gaston mentions the woo when he's talking about Belle. Maybe that was in the back of my head, even though subconsciously, because he was gonna woo and make Belle his wife. I guess you could say it's that. Or maybe a woo, Adam the Woo. Has nothing to do with the professional wrestler, the nature boy Ric Flair, that always says that. A lot of people think that too. Okay, I've said so much, yet I've said so little. The vlog. I've said this a couple times, but this is the real outro. The vlog is over.